Welcome to Within You. This is a podcast where we explore the unknown together. That liminal space as we navigate between now and what's next. Yo soy Vivian Carrasco. I call myself a wisdom teacher and a mindset mentor, and I am your transformational guide. I'm based right here in Fort Worth, Texas, which is what I call Funky Town, and I'm really excited about our January series. I am calling them Beginning Again, and I'm actually going to start with reading a couple of points out of a book called Sabbath by Wayne Mueller. It says, finding rest, renewal, and delight in our busy lives. And oddly enough, I'm not going to really talk about rest. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about setting goals. How I set goals, what my goal setting process is, and how I see the way that I move towards my own goals and how I support my family, friends, and loved ones as they move towards what they really want in their lives. So I'm going to read, this is interesting. So this chapter is titled New Beginning. It's on page 35 of the book Sabbath by Wayne Mueller. And it starts with this quote. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. This is Genesis 1:1-2. So what I want to draw an emphasis to, and this is really the undercurrent of both episodes for January, is the idea of beginning and what creation, how we create. So in the beginning alludes to there being endless beginnings in the cycles of life. So the book says that biblical scholars agree that the phrase God created would be better translated as when God began to create. So the story literally begins in the beginning when God began to create. So creation, our life, is ongoing. There's an ongoing story of new beginnings, opportunities for us to begin again and again and again. And so, a little bit further along on page 36, it says, take delight in beginning together anew. And what it's drawing an emphasis to is that the Sabbath is a spiritual tradition for Hebrews, for Christians, for Muslims, for the majority of spiritual traditions. They have a day where they celebrate rest and renewal. And that's what I wanted to draw attention to in this episode, is a drawing away from the culture of and the experience of New Year's resolutions, where there's this anxiety, like this energy that comes from setting a resolution right on the new year. You know, this year is going to be different because I'm going to blank. And then what typically happens, according to popular research, and if you look at gyms, the difference between January and June, things just start to fizzle out. And for myself, when I was in that cycle of creation, I was very hard on myself. There was a lot of shame around things that I couldn't do, that I wanted to do, habits that I wanted to change. Maybe, I hate the idea of weight loss. I like muscle strength and activity and lots of, I've really changed the way that I see that. I've changed my mindset around it. But for a long time, it was around just the failure in things that I had said I would do at the new year, and then I didn't do them. So what I wanted to draw your attention to is the way that I look at my goals now. And I use an acronym that's called MINE, M-I-N-E. And if you'd like to listen to that in a little bit more depth, there's also a previous episode in October of 2019 where you can take a second listen to that if you haven't already. I'm going to start with here a quote from Henry Nouwer, N-O-U-W-E-R. You don't think your way into a new kind of living. You live your way into a new kind of thinking. So goals are important. I'm not saying goals are not important, but what I am saying is that in addition to the goals that are set, like a New Year's resolution that's a big push and then you fizzle out. There's this idea that goals need to be SMART, and the acronym is specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based. And I don't agree with that. Like I said, my goals are actually mine, and the word mine means me, mine. And I'll talk a little bit about what each of those letters mean. But I want to kind of just share a personal process with you before I go into that. First, we in my family, for at least for the last 15 years, and we don't have an opportunity to do it all the time together because my children are grown men now, and neither of them live at home. But when we had a chance to, and I still do it myself with David, we actually would go out to dinner sometime around the Lunar New Year, which is coming up in February. I now actually move through the cycles of the moon rather than the cycles of the sun, because the moon is more nurturing. It is more true to my current nature. And so I don't know why I started this practice about 15 years ago, but it just was something that I may have read or had an inclination to do, and it worked for us. So what we would do is we would go out to dinner. We'd pick what place we wanted to go to, and after we sat and had fun and talked and really, really settled into a joyful energy, just chatting along. I remember that the guys were as young as, junior high at this point and upwards into all the ages that they've been before now. Just being in a good mood, just really having an opportunity to enjoy each other's company and kind of be in a good mood. And then we'd just very lightly ask, I'd have pieces of paper and pen, and I'd ask, what is it that you really want? After we'd had this time together, what is it that you really want? And we'd share what we wanted with each other. And I think the magic in that is that subconsciously we would support each other towards what the other person wanted. That's one thing that's been a thread that runs through my relationship with David, and in the way that we initially raised our guys, and now how we support them as adults, is just exactly that, supporting you through your dreams. But they have to be verbalized and they have to be expressed. And this was just a really fun way to do that. I have an Oriental type bag that has these little fortune cookie holders in them, and that's just what I used to hold these intentions, these wishes that we'd set, these goals that we'd write down of things that we wanted. And especially when the boys were younger, we would just put them away, and then they wouldn't come out until the next year when we sat down to review our goals from the previous year and then to set our goals for the new year. Now it's interesting, and obviously life is a complicated, intricate, there's lots of factors into everything. So I'm not saying that it was a single act that made this happen, but it was really fun over a period of 5, 7, 10 years to see that each of the intentions that we individually set that day, they all came true. I cannot think of a single example of us writing something down that we wanted to achieve or wanted to create or wanted to make happen, and it did not happen. Without fail, it did. It's not, and I don't remember even to this day that it's something that we thought about and incorporated into our daily habits. Even though I advocate for that, it was just something that was from, I would say, the deepest parts of ourselves, shared in trust and respect and believing and knowing that the people that are around that table were going to do whatever they could to support us, to have those experiences or to achieve those goals. And so I offer that to you only to share. That's just a fun way that we would set goals as a family and share them with each other. Now, obviously, I'm not a parenting expert and I don't pretend to be one in real life, but I have this book in front of me, and it was interesting because I didn't plan to use it until the last minute, and then I picked it up and there was a tab that was set to it. So I figured it was a sign to share this with you. This book is called Grit, and it's from Angela Duckworth. And the interesting thing about this chapter, it's Parenting for Grit. Now, she's a famous researcher on persistence, success. And the tab that I had marked is parenting. How do you parent for grit? What does she suggest? And she also doesn't purport herself to be, a researcher in parenting. But she does offer a couple of stories from her research and then these words in her book. Parents that parent for grit are accurate judges of the psychological needs of their children. They appreciate that children need love, limits, and latitude to reach their full potential. Their authority is based on knowledge and wisdom rather than power. Now, I'm going to say that this also applies to human beings that are not being parented, but being supported in relationship, either through friends, marriages, sisters and brothers, cousins, whoever. That this idea of wisdom that's based on love, limits, and latitude to reach full potential applies to all of us. And one of the things about being an accurate judge of the psychological need of their children, it reminds me of a practice that I used to have when the guys were young. So where I would analyze, I would try to figure out the layer beneath the layer of what they were expressing in the moment, especially when they're super, super young. And I remember asking myself, sort of getting down to their eye level, whether that was taking a knee or bringing them onto my lap or just coming close and sensing what it was that they truly needed. And I would ask myself, do you need a hug? Are you hungry or are you tired? And so I offer that back to you. Like, we have to be accurate judges of our own psychological needs. We are continuing to parent ourselves through our lives. And so if you're looking for a first step on how to get what you need, achieve what you want, this is a good practice to have, is to tune in to yourself. Be a good judge of your own psychological needs, and then give yourself love. Offer yourself some limits, and then give yourself the latitude to succeed. I love that. So feel free to pick up the entire book because it's a jewel, by Angela Duckworth on grit, and follow all the other examples that she offers for parenting for grit and what grit is. So going back to the initial intro to this episode, it's the idea of beginning again, of knowing that you are continuously beginning. I mean, imagine like when you open your eyes, you're starting over in the morning after a night's sleep. So there's this pause where you're resting, your body's healing itself, and then you open your eyes and you get to start all over again. You get to create. Like, creation is ongoing. So if you've been tough on yourself, like I used to be tough on myself about a failed New Year's resolution or a failed attempt at something, then beginning again is a way to offer yourself a new start. Whether it's at the next day or the next try, begin again. A second book that I'm going to recommend if you're at the beginning of this, because I'm going to guess that you love to learn and you want to grow. That's why you're listening to this podcast. That's why you're listening to me. So you might have already, I consider this a very basis of mindset work. The very beginning of mindset work is that idea that we can learn and grow. If you have a hunch that you can do that, but you're not sure, and you're working to shift your mindset, your initial mindset, your belief around what you can do, then you absolutely have to read the book Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. It is like a cornerstone. It is at the basis of the way that you think about what you can achieve. So again, I'm going to have a hunch that you're maybe beyond this, but if this resonates with you, then visit this, read this, experience it, immerse yourself in it, and try to take some jewels. And there's nothing wrong. Actually, it's so right to be in a beginner's mindset, even if you think you've got your mindset dialed in. revisit it, because we always can tune up the way that we're thinking and take a second look, build our awareness around something. And it's very simply in ways, like really simple ways. Like I remember reading a book, and the second time I read it, I actually take new insights from it, in the same way that I may have seen a movie, and if I watch it a second time, which isn't very often, then I see different things that I didn't see the first time. So whether you are at the beginning of trying to shift your mindset to believe in yourself, to believe that you can achieve, that you can learn, that you do grow throughout your entire life, or this is kind of a muscle reflex. You know that failure is just, failure is not stop. You just learn from it and move on. Mindset by Carol Dweck is a great book to begin with. So without further ado, like I said, one of my personal processes that we go through as a family is to just sit down with each other, share our goals, and then put them away. But I think what's magical about it is that there's respect, there's love, there's, that potential. We really believe in each other. And I'll talk about it a little bit. I have it on my notes to talk about it towards the end, but I'll mention it now again. Whether it's one person or 5 people or 15 people, you have to surround yourself by people that support you in your goals. And if you don't have an in real life opportunity to do that, whether, because of this global pandemic or just because you haven't cultivated that community yet, know that the 5 thoughts, the 5 minds that you surround yourself with are going to influence you most. When I was in elementary school, and I definitely attribute this to me shifting, because I am one generation away from sharecroppers. Like my mom picked cotton and then rotated seasons to do onions and cantaloupe. Like, I think that's what a sharecropper is. I should have looked that up before I said it, but like laborers, like farm laborers, one generation away. And her mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother, like that is the way that they supported their family. And I have no shame around that much. I actually am pretty excited that with the changes in technology and the way that we live, like it's been one generation. Like, how did that happen? For me, I surrounded myself through books. And so I was able to meet people in their autobiographies, whether that was Eleanor Roosevelt or Anne Frank. Those are 2 of my most favorite biographies. The Holy Family, like these are people that may not be alive and near me and experiencing my day-to-day with me, but they are friends that I made through books. So you can do the same. And I'm offering that to say that if you can get a library card, and there is an app called Libby, and which I use, where I can check out books, or you can listen to books on YouTube. Like there is no excuse for you to say that you don't have the people around you, because if they're not there in real life, they can be there for you in books. Community is important. Community for me, in the way that I live and work and how I see the world, is 80% of the 100% of effort it takes to get there, because I see it happen over and over. I am impacted by other people's perspective and what they see, and it delights me. Like, let's delight in creating anew together. That really, those words out of that book really jumped out at me, because it is so true. It is why I have a community as my primary offering to the world. Like Within You is a community, an online learning community, in addition to a podcast, because you're, right here in front of me with me, traveling the journey as you listen, as you allow me the honor of being in your ear. But I also travel with a small community and learning journeys through Within You. And I do that, and I created that offering because it is just, it's necessary. There's no other way to get where you want to go if you don't try to find folks that can support you, that can believe in you, and that can love you. And so start with books if you don't have people in real life. Anyway, now on to the acronym. So mine. And at the end of the podcast, I'll actually offer a list of resources that you can explore if this topic is interesting to you. But in addition to not setting what the industry typically calls SMART goals, I set mind goals. And mind goals have, I would say, the undercurrent or the difference between goals that are SMART and goals that are mind is that it combines your head and your heart. So your head and the stubbornness and the commitment and the persistence and the grit, and your heart, which is your courage, like the Latin root of heart means courage. And when I think of heart, I think of the two words take courage. Like it is an action. It's a verb. Being in your heart is a verb. It's not like being in your feelings. It is taking courage. So mind goals combine that. And the reason that I personally don't stand behind SMART goals is if I had only limited myself and my dreams to goals that were achievable, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based, I would not live the life that I do now because it was unrealistic. And it was not even probable for me to have achieved lots of the achievements I have, lots of the things that are considered milestones in the culture. It was improbable for a girl whose parents didn't finish high school to have a doctorate. It was darn near impossible. But that's why I say that I don't believe in SMART goals. I believe in focusing on the process, in the persistent daily action, in deliberate practice. That supports your goals. So another thing about goals that are mine versus SMART is, for me, and I'm making this up, right? If it doesn't, you are your own best teacher. I am simply a guide. And if this doesn't resonate with you, throw it away. Push next to the next episode. Or pause and kind of journal maybe why it's not resonating with you and then move on. But you are your own best teacher. This is just an experience that I have and doesn't mean that I'm right. And there is no really right or wrong around this. It is what's right for you. And I will continue to say that over and over and over again because I also have to remind myself. The reason that another distinction between SMART goals and mind goals is that when I refer in my mind to SMART goals, I'm also thinking of goals that the outside world wants me to achieve, that the outside world, that people that know me or that are around me would support and be okay with. And that may not be completely aligned with my own wants and desires. So mind goals are very much more attuned, integrated with my internal compass, my deepest values, and what I know that I want. And that might not fit what the popular culture is, and that's okay. And so that's the undercurrent, the difference between mind goals and SMART goals for me. The first acronym, the process of mind goals, right? The first letter is M, and this word I'm going to use is movement. And this is a principal teaching of what I've learned in the since 2013 when I started unfolding Love Being Human. One of the key takeaways is the direction that you're moving, your movement. Where are you going? Not what is the destination, but are you moving towards what brings you joy? Are you moving towards what enlivens you? Or is your focus, is your intention, is your whole heart, are you fleeing, running from what you're afraid of? Are you avoiding what you're afraid of? So that is important. Notice as you go to make decisions, as you discern something, is it something that is taking you towards something you love? Or is it something that is taking you away from something that you fear? Because you want joy to guide you, not fear. So your movement, moving towards what you enjoy, and enjoy means take heart. Like this all sort of runs into the same circles, like courage and heart and taking delight, like being actionable about it. It's not just something in the air that you sniff out, like you've got to do the things that bring you joy. That's the first thing. So innovation. I say innovation because your goal should be creative and original to you. It is a combination of your personal DNA and all of the spices of your personality, your values, your purpose, your like everything that makes up who you are mixed up with everything else. Like, what is this yours? Like, did you create it? Or is it something that you think that you should do? Even though, and I'll use a really good, I don't know that it's a really good example, but I think an example for me is I do have a doctorate, but it was easy for me to go to school. And it just so happened to align with what the culture, the popular culture in the United States supports, and that's a higher education. And so I went higher and higher and higher until I got to my terminal degree. It aligned with the culture, but I also enjoyed it. Like, I remember there were days when I would sit in my office in El Paso when I was working on my dissertation, literally in the flow. Like, time would pass as I was researching and reading and trying to make connections between research and identifying these new ways that I could think about collaboration, because my dissertation is on interorganizational collaboration. And if you Google me, I think it'll pop up. I don't even know the full title of it, but 300 pages are summarized into Talk is the Work. Like, collaboration pops up through people having conversations, interactions. And anyway, I would sit in my office and I would just be in my best life. And it made me extend, actually, the semesters that it took me to finish my doctorate, because I didn't want the experience to end. So that just happened to align with culture. It might not be the right thing for you to go to to get a degree. It might be better for you to have a different path. The only one that's going to know that is you. I remember when Jacob, my youngest, was graduating high school, he was set on going to a local university called Texas Christian University, Go Frogs. And he is now a proud graduate, thank the Lord. I encouraged him seek out other avenues, other opportunities, other things like trades. And, my dad was a welder. I'm very proud of my dad. Anything that, he knew would make him, that he would enjoy. And when I was discouraging him from going to college, I remember him looking at me and he's like, "Are you crazy?" And I was like, "No." Well, maybe a little bit, but I wanted him to know that there were other avenues for him to find his way in the world, that pursuing a college education is not the only one of them. And so that's why the I is innovation. It has to be for you. You can ask yourself, does your motivation come from ambition, which is what culture says you should do? Like, once I accomplish this, then I may feel that, or people will respect me. So is it coming from outside of you? Is it something that you want from outside of you? Or is it an aspiration? Is it something that you are, it's the person that you want to be, something that you are becoming? I describe this a lot as the difference between, well, we'll just say that. Is it an ambition because it is coming from an outside value, from the culture, or is it internal to who you are? Like, just think about that. The N, M-I-N-E, I call your nature. And this is part of love being human. The human part of that intention is recognizing your true nature. Knowing that your brain does certain things when you ask it questions. Like, it is a backwards machine, not a forward thinking machine. So if I were to think about having a new experience, my brain would say, you might not want to do that because you've never done it before, and you could get hurt and it could go wrong. And, so it's we are in a survival capacity with our brain for most of it. And there are so many mental models that come into our brain, like negativity bias and confirmation bias. And there's all these biases that are just part of our nature. And when I was talking earlier about our psychological, assessing our own psychological needs, like this is part of it. Like if you're tired, you're not going to be at your best. If you're, needing to eat and you're hungry, like you're not going to be at your best. So look at your nature. Look at like what is happening. Like pay attention to yourself, like your body as your nature, and know that it's okay to be afraid, because anytime that we're doing something new, that fear is going to come along for the ride. Elizabeth Gilbert, I believe she has it in her book, Big Magic. I may have heard of it on a podcast or in a YouTube video, but she talks about taking a car ride with fear, and fear being in the passenger side, and her saying to fear, hey, you're here for the ride. I know that. I'm okay with that. But you do not have control of the radio station. I control the radio station. And it's kind of the same thing. We have a natural things that move through us as we're learning, right? If we move too past our comfort zone, if we're in a learning mode, then we get into overwhelm. So we need to know that about ourselves and take ourselves just to that edge so we can expand that capacity infinitely. We can learn. I mean, there's so much potential to us. We can learn to, have fear along as a passenger, not in control of the radio station. We can learn to, like I talk about in the intro and in so many of the content that I create, this uncertainty. Like we can navigate through that uncertainty, through that chaos, slowly, step by step, with each step unfolding the next step before us, rather than getting overwhelmed because we don't know the how yet. And yet is a perfect word to add to something if you're being negative and you're trying to, or you're working on, that inner critic, that narrator in your mind that which is part of your nature, that voice doesn't go away. And sidebar, I'm a big meditator, and it doesn't get quiet in meditation either. It gets quieter, but you never truly silence that narration that's happening. So it's okay that it's there. Like you can train yourself to listen to it, to acknowledge it, and then to add more to it. Like if it says, I don't know how to do that yet, like use that as a strategy. Just listen and become more aware of yourself and what your nature is as you're following your way to joy. So that's M-I-N. And then E, this one is big for me, huge for me. It is I think the biggest thing that I've learned about myself in the last 10 years. So time. Right now I'm thinking about my husband, David, when he's watching TV, I have several clocks in the house and they go off in all different times. None of the clocks are set to the actual real time in the world. They're all just sort of haphazardly set to whenever I wind them again. Cuckoos, grandmothers, grandfathers, you name it. There's always chimes going off. One of the reason that I set them at different times is because that time, the time of the world, isn't what takes precedence over my life. My rhythm, my energy is what's most important. And so this is like the coolest thing that I have figured out in the last decade, is attuning to my own energy. Like one of the things that's interesting about the learning journeys that we take in within university is that they are timed by the moon. Like the moon has more feminine, more nurturing energy than the sun. And I feel like I've already had my years of sun that like push hard productivity, like never sleep, go to the next thing. I don't have as much of that sort of masculine sun energy in my life anymore. My life is very much rhythmic. And this might be TMI for you, but it is so rhythmic that one of the signs, one of the nature, like when I talk about paying attention to your nature, I recognize this in my cycles. So my flow comes with the full moon. And there are times when I notice that it doesn't, and I can actually do an analysis and say, those are the times that I'm not in my own space. Like something has taken me off of my rhythm, and it's impacting my body. When I am in flow, then my cycle comes with the full moon. And that's been cool. So I really, like, if this was an area where you're interested in learning more, reach out to me via email at vivian@viviancarrasco.com and send me an email, and we'll figure out how to get you started, because everyone's different. So I follow my rhythm. I pay attention to my energy. And I actually have a habit journal that I created a couple of years ago that I don't promote a lot. But if you send me an email and you say habit journal, I'll also send you that as a PDF if you'd like. But so in addition to your rhythm, like your energy, like pay attention to your energy, I also, and this is more of a tactic for me, like I'm putting shoes on this strategy. That's what the girls call them. I block time according to my energy. Like there are times in the day and times in the week and then times in the month where certain things happen. It is not so much like it happens every single day. Like daily constraints overwhelm me. Like if I have to do a certain thing at a certain time on a certain day without considering my energy, without considering block time, without considering how much sleep I've had, what else is going on in my life. So I'm very, very attuned to my energy. So SMART goals are time-based and they only focus on time. Mine goals are energy-based. I don't like to race against the clock. It does not add value to my life, and it is undue stress for me. One of the things that, this is also why within university, in my online learning community, we travel through seasons. Like we take learning journeys, experiences as the season comes up. And I'm going to actually flip back. This is an important time to sort of tell you what our next season is. So our upcoming learning journey, for instance, is timed with the Lunar New Year. So on February 12th, we'll have our initial call. And then we have a season of deliberate practice. And we're going to do this from February 17th through April 3rd. That's our experience together in community. It aligns with Lent, but that's part of our energy. And this continuous unfolding and learning and reintegrating, that is super important to me. So in the show notes, in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, or if you happen to be listening, quote, watching it on YouTube, it'll be in the comments. I'll add that there, where you can join us for this next season if that's something that you're interested in. So MINE. E is for energy. Pay attention to your rhythm, to your energy, like track it and then follow it. One of the metaphors that I use for this that I absolutely love to sort of distinguish between a time, like strictly time-based, because sometimes we don't know how long something's going to take. Strictly time-based versus energy-based is, imagine yourself walking out into the ocean and going against every single wave that comes. You're just walking. You're saying, I am going to walk. I'm going to take one step in front of the other until I get to this spot. And those waves are coming and they're hitting you and you're fighting against this current and you're swallowing salt water and it's in your eyes and your hair's everywhere. I mean, you're a mess. You're going to get to that spot that you identified. Yes, you are, because you are determined and you will do what you want. But you're going to be tired and you might have swallowed too much water and you're going to be coughing. But it's going to happen. And then look at the difference between stepping out into the current and then waiting for the wave to bring you back and then take you forward. And then stopping again and waiting for that current to bring you in and bring you out. Like, this is the perfect example for me of when you follow goals that are mine, yours, like unique to you, based on your energy versus on a specific time. And building that into your productivity cycle. Like, what does the incoming wave for you look like? And then whoosh. I get more done now more significant things done. I'm not going to say more things because I used to do a lot of things, but things that matter to me, things that are important, things that contribute to the world, things that are meaningful. I get so much more done than before. And before I would be dead tired, like literally dead tired. And now like there's a fullness to my life, like I don't know. I think it's just this attention to those pauses. Like even when I mentioned the book, The Sabbath, at the beginning, there is a time to rest and then there's a time to play. And think about it, like, do you honor your Sabbath? Like, do you allow yourself enough sleep so that your body can rest and then you can play hard? That is such an important point in pursuing goals, in achieving your milestones in your life of what you want, is this idea that you have to pause and then begin again, just like we started. So that is mind goals versus smart goals, focused on what is important to you. And with goals, for me, it's a focus on the process, not on the outcome. In that book that I recommended by Carol Dweck, one of the main points that she points out of her research and her work is you will grow. There's no if and or but about it. You will grow and you will get better through deliberate practice. So focus on the process. I made a note to share with you, enjoy the ride. And this reminds me of mountain biking. Like when I take a downhill trail, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, I'll actually link the episode to my lessons learned from mountain biking. When I take that downhill trail, I am not focused on getting to the other end, like to the stop. I'm enjoying the entire ride. Like I'm focused on the whole process, not the outcome. So enjoy the ride. Praise the process is what Carol Dweck says. It's not on the actual outcome. Like imagine a toddler who is learning to walk. That toddler, if you told every time it fell, if you chastised it for falling, it wouldn't learn to walk. But it gets up because it knows itself. It's learning. That's what learning is. It gets up to learn to walk and then it falls down and it thinks it's funny. Like the last time I saw a toddler fall from walking, it kind of giggled and then got back up. Try to do that in your own life. Like when you're learning something new, praise your own process, not the outcome. The other distinction that'll happen if you're praising the process and not the outcome, one of the things that happened to me is I was hitting those milestones of higher education, like bachelor's, master's. I finally figured it out for my doctorate. But at the end of my bachelor's, I thought, I'm going to feel a certain way. I'm going to have this thing that I'm missing, whether that was respect or confidence or whatever it was. And at the end of that, once I crossed the stage and I got my diploma, it wasn't there. It didn't give me what I thought it would give me, like the outcome. And I think about my oldest, Joshua, and his process to becoming an Eagle Scout. It's the process that had him become an Eagle Scout, not the ceremony, not the outcome of being an Eagle Scout. And it's the same, and I can actually say this with confidence now. I am an author and I will publish a book. And it's the process of writing and editing and writing and editing over the last 4 years that has helped me evolve into that identity. There is, and people tell you that it's the process of writing the book that changes you, not the book. It's so true. Completely aligns with what I'm trying to say. Like, focus on the process. Like, if you look at your daily schedule, if you look at what you do in the day, that really is an indicator of your life in the next 5 and 10 and 15 years. What you do in a single day. Because you're focused on the process. Because drip by drip by drip, things happen. So you're going to grow and you are going to get better at whatever it is that you're setting your attention on getting better. It's going to happen through community and on with deliberate practice. So I want to offer you a journaling question at this point. If you and I are not friends and within university and you and I do not already work together one-on-one, then this is an exercise that you can do on your own. If you were granted a do-over, what kind of person would you choose to become? I'd recommend you time yourself. Give yourself 3-5 minutes or free write, and without stopping, without editing, to answer that question. And as you're answering it, describe your values, describe your beliefs, and describe the personality of that person as a third party, like not you. Like, who do you choose to become? Who is that person? And then reflect, pause, and take a look at what your answers are to that. So I emphasized this in the beginning when I had made notes to share it at the end, but you get to choose your circle. You get to create your community, and you have an obligation to connect with your people, even if you do it through books or in videos or in podcasts, like you and I are friends. Hola, amiga. Like, connect with your people. Give yourself love. Be compassionate. Be gentle as you learn and as you grow, because it will happen. So the resources I'm going to list for you in the show notes or wherever you're listening to this is a talk I gave several years ago called the Living Room Lecture. And it's where I sort of dissect the difference between love and logic. I'm also going to share a workshop that I gave several years ago called Designing Your Life. It's a 3-part workshop, and it was a ton of fun to do. I actually used to do these in person for lots and lots of years, and then it went digital. And then I sunset that experience in that last digital like that live workshop, and I'm offering it to you for free. You can have it. Do it. You can do this. And then another tool that I have that I created a couple years ago is Imagining Your Ideal. It's a 21-day, again, because you deliberate practice over time. That is how humans learn. It's 21 days. It comes to your email, and it's called Imagine Your Ideal. Because if you have not or want some support, if you just don't even know what you really want, right, then imagining what your ideal is a 21-day study that you can sign up for. You just have to pop in your email, and then you'll get that every day. Those are resources that I have for you. One other resource that I actually mentioned earlier, I think, is a habit journal that I drafted. So email me if you want a PDF of that, because I actually don't have that alive anywhere online. And then I want to end with this quote that I wrote down from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Our desires presage the capacities within us. They are harborers of what my writing is so, of what we shall be able to accomplish. So I'm going to read that over again. Our desires presage the capabilities within us. They are harbingers of what we shall be able to accomplish. We are attracted to what is already ours in secret. Thus, passionate anticipation transforms what is indeed possible into dreamt for reality. Those are beautiful words from Ralph Waldo Emerson. We're attracted to what is already ours in secret. Thus, passionate anticipation transforms what is indeed possible into dreamt for reality. If it's something that you want, it is entirely possible for you to have it. It's a matter of you establishing a practice, a deliberate practice towards it, building a community around it, and pursuing it with grit. It will happen. And if your life is anything like mine, what you imagined to be possible wouldn't have even touched what you actually got, because your life will be even better than you could have ever imagined it. I know that that is possible for you. I've seen it in my life and in the lives of those I love. And if it can be for us, it can absolutely be for you. It would be my absolute honor to support you towards a goal that you have, an intention that you've set. If my support is something that you're looking for, then I invite you to visit the mentoring tab of my website, www.viviancarrasco.com, where you can learn about all the different ways that I can support you. Thank you so much for sharing your most valuable resource with me, which is your time and your intention. I hope that these stories and these experiences and these little tidbits have brought value to you. May peace be with you always.